What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the UFC Fight Night coming up this weekend. Main event, Ortega taking on Yair Rodriguez, in which is set to be a very important fight for the featherweight division. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. Let's get straight into it. I mean, this is a really fun UFC Fight Night. I think the order could have been changed around a bit. I don't see the Michelle Waterson Amanda Lemos fight as a real co-main event. But for me, this is the fight of the night right here. Shane Burgos versus Charles Jourdain. I think this could have been co-main event quite easily. And there's a couple of fights on the prelims which are really good. But let's start off with the main event. I think it's a really intriguing fight. And it's a really important fight for the featherweight division. We have Josh Emmett waiting in the wings really for his title shot. However, I think, Yair could probably get in ahead of him just off name value. And with an impressive victory here, I think he could probably get a shot as for the title against Volkanovski, and which would be a more intriguing fight for me than the Josh Emmett fight. I think Yair's got more of a chance of catching Volk with something crazy. But anyway, he's got to take out Brian Ortega, and which is going to be a very difficult fight. I think Ortega, for me, he's definitely one of the top level featherweights, but he's always just been a tad bit short of Holloway and Volkanovski. And for me, I think he does struggle against an elite striker like Yair Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez can definitely give him problems. I do wonder if there's going to be a chance in the fight where maybe Yair's dropping low for something and, Ortega can snatch him up in some sort of dart or anaconda choke. I think that's a real possibility. I do think that coming into this fight, the damage that Brian Ortega has taken throughout his career, it is definitely a worthy talking point. I think he has taken a lot of damage compared to his age in some ways. And you look at the Volkanovski and, Holloway fight, that is going to take chunks off his career, in my opinion. I do think Yair Rodriguez is someone who has taken a lot less damage in his career so far. And I do wonder what sort of Ortega we're going to see. Yes, he bounced back after the Holloway fight, but this is the first time we're going to see him after the Volk fight, and it's going to definitely be interesting. For me, Yair Rodriguez would be my pick right now. He's an underdog, but I'm going to go with Yair Rodriguez to somehow get a finish here. I was super impressed with his performance against Max Holloway, who, I guess if he was doing MMA maths, which never works out well, you could say he put up a better fight against Holloway than maybe Ortega did. But for me, I just have a feeling that it's time for Alpantera. I just feel like he's put himself in a position now where, there's a couple of years where he's a bit absent and there's some problems, there's a beat fight. But even after that loss against Holloway, I felt like his name value went, straight through the roof. And I'm going to pick him to get a win here in this fight. I'm going to go with a second round TKO stoppage over Brian Ortega. I think maybe the damage will catch up with Ortega, and that's what I'm going to go with. Michelle Waterson versus Amanda Lemos. I hate to rule Waterson out straight away because she definitely has a chance to win this fight. I think she could definitely win a decision. I don't see her getting a stoppage in any form. I think that is highly unlikely for me. I could definitely see her winning a fight from the outside if she's able to stop Lemos from, basically hunting her down. But I really don't see that as a possibility. I do think Lemos is, despite coming off that loss against Jessica Andrade with, I think it was a standing arm triangle or something like that. Previously to that fight, she showed that she meant business in this division, and she's an absolute savage. Michelle Waterson, someone who we don't see as much anymore. Her age is, probably creeping up there for a women's fighter, especially in the women's strawweight division. I think, I don't know how old she is, but she's got to be in her mid to late 30s if I was to have a gander, as this takes forever to load, but fuck it. So that's kind of old. She's obviously a mother as well. For me, I just see Lemos as a savage who's going to get in her face, and I kind of hate this matchup for Waterson. I think she might be a bit beat up after this fight. I'm going to go with a Lemos finish in round two. I think that, Waterson is tough, and she's proven she's tough over the years in the fights she's been in. But I think Lemos is one of the newer fighters in this UFC division, and she's one of the newer breed of MMA fighters, especially in women's MMA, and I do see her putting a bit of a whooping on Michelle Waterson, unfortunately. We move on to Li Jingliang against Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu. I think this is an interesting fight. Salikov's had a really good run in UFC. I think he lost his first fight against Garcia, but since then I think he's gone undefeated, or I could be getting that mixed up with another fighter, but I'm pretty sure that's right. And, you know, for Lee coming into this fight, he's coming off the defeat to Khamzat Chimaev, and that was quite a while ago, and we haven't seen him since. And for a guy who likes to stay pretty active, you know, it's kind of unlike Leach. But for me, I think Leach has got a lot of problems in this fight. But I think they're definitely solvable problems. Muslim's the favourite. And I think coming into this fight, that's probably right, especially after their last performances each way. I think he's going to have a huge advantage on the feet, especially in, you know, the longer sort of distance kicking range. He's shown that he's very lethal with a lot of different techniques, whether that be from the front leg or the back leg. He loves his spinning techniques, and he's got so many finishes via like spinning back kick and spinning wheel kick, and you know, he's able to mix up the two techniques very well. I do think that Lee cannot afford to just stand and let Muslim dictate the distance, because if he does, it's going to be a very short night for him, in my opinion. For Lee, though, I think he's actually going to get the win in this fight. I do think he's obviously going to know the strengths of Muslim and that. Great striker. And Lee in his own right isn't a bad striker. He's got good power. He's very athletic in the welterweight division as well. But I think what he's going to do, I think he's got closer distance straight away. He's probably got to look to use some sort of wrestling, but I'm sure that's not going to be easy against Muslim Salikov, as, you know, he's coming from that Dagestan sort of region where that's what they're given from the bottle, apparently, for wrestling. But I do think Lee's got a good chance. I think he can make this fight very dirty. I think he can get him up against the fence and probably use, you know, some dirty boxing, stuff like that. And I just think the experience of Lee in the UFC, I think that's going to play a factor. And I do think he's going to get a decision victory here. I think it's a tough fight, and he's probably deservingly the underdog, like I said, coming off their last performances each. But I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's definitely a very intriguing one. It's a very important one for the welterweight division as well. Muslim's been on a tear, and he probably deserves this crack at the top 15. Super interesting fight here. Matt Schnall now taking on Symone Jaredji. I don't know how to say this guy's name, but he's definitely a beast. The Tibetan Eagle, is it, or something like that? Sorry for pronunciations. But yeah, I think Matt Schnall's got a tough fight on his hands here. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, so I'll try not to say it. But for me, Matt Schnall is one of my favourite fighters at the flyweight division. He always brings, you know, his all, and he's always an interesting fighter as well. He's a very fun fighter to watch, especially on the feet. His ground game's gotten a hell of a lot better as he's gone on in his MMA career, and he's definitely a threat from there now. But for me, I think he's going to have a tough fight here. I'd love to pick him, but I'm going to have to pick against him. His opponent is just so talented on the feet. He's very quick. His kicking game is extraordinary. And I think he's got a tough task on his hands here. I think you look at Matt Schnall and, you know, his last performance, you know, I think there's positives to take away from it. You know, against Royval, despite getting kind of run over, you can look at the fight and you can go, you know, his head really wasn't in the fight after, I think it was losing his mother in some sad circumstances before the fight, and still continuing to go through with the fight. So I think, you know, for him, he can look at that last fight and go, you know, I wasn't my best. And he's going to have to be at his best in this fight, because if he doesn't, he's going to be in a whole world of trouble. I do think he's going to lose, though. I'm going to have to pick with the Tibetan Eagle, Symone Jaredji. I don't know how to say it. Symone Jaredji? I don't know. But I'm going to pick him anyway to get a victory here within the distance. I'm going to go with a third round TKO in a war of attrition. So I'm going with all finishes here. So you know I'm probably wrong somewhere, because that's never going to happen. And my fight of the night, Shane Burgos taking on Charles Jourdain. I think this fight, for me, if I was to describe this fight with one word, it'd be damage. I think both guys can take it, and both guys can definitely, deal it out. I think Shane Burgos is someone who has taken a lot of damage in his career. The Barboza fight was a scary finish in a way where he kind of was hit with a shot, looked like he was fine, but then his body shut down moments after that, after not being hit since, and that was a scary one for me. Jourdain has been someone I've really been high on for a while now, and I think in his last fight against, I think it was Valent, what's his name? I could picture him, but I can't see him. But yeah, his last fight was super impressive against Venata, Lando Venata. He got the submission in the end, which was kind of something, I think going into the fight people didn't see. I think his ground game is obviously very underrated, and his stand-up is phenomenal. Some of the fights he's been in his very young MMA career, he's not anywhere near prime time yet, in my opinion, and he's a great fighter coming out of Canada. And for me, Shane Burgos is, one of the most, fan-friendly sort of performers in the UFC, and I think you can say the same about Charles Jourdain. I think he's been in nothing but fun fights. I think this is going to be an extraordinary fight. I think it's going to go the distance, and I think it's going to be a very close one. I think the majority of this fight is going to take place on the feet. I could see Shane Burgos really lighting up Jourdain with some leg kicks. I think the hands of Jourdain are going to cause problems for Burgos, however. I think it's going to be a really interesting one. If I'm going to have to pick now, I'm going to have to pick Jourdain, probably from bias, but I cannot wait to see this one go down. Super fun fight, and make sure you don't miss it. Lauren Murphy taking on Miesha Tate in the women's flyweight division. For me, the women's flyweight division is probably the weirdest one, and probably the worst out of all of the women's divisions in MMA, excluding the featherweight division. As it's not really a real thing. For me, I think these two fighters are kind of versions of MMA fighters from the past. I think, despite Lauren Murphy's good run to get up to a title shot in the flyweight division, I don't think it's as impressive as if she was able to go down and get a title shot in 115 or go up and get one in 135. I think this division is kind of stuck in the past. I think it's got an extraordinary champion at the top of it, but with some of the contenders, definitely some old school sort of fighters. For me, what could you say about Lauren Murphy and Miesha Tate if they were around? If this version of them was fighting in the Ronda Rousey era, I think they'd still be in the same sort of position. Miesha Tate, unbelievable sort of story, the way she won the bout against Holly Holm, but for me, really lacks something in her game which makes her, I guess you could say, threatening. She kind of has this thing where, for me, she doesn't have an ability to impose herself at times. Lauren Murphy, I guess you could say the complete opposite. She's very good at composing herself in fights and putting herself in a position to make the fight really rough and nasty, but I think she lacks some of the skills. For me, I don't really like this fight, and I can see it going to the decision. I'm going to go with a Lauren Murphy win here. I do think Miesha Tate, with the time off and being a mother, has really caught up to her, and for me, I'm going to go Lauren Murphy via unanimous decision, probably a 29-28 or 30-27. I just don't see Miesha being competitive nowadays. We move to the prelims. There's only two fights I really want to talk about, guys. So we're going to start with Yair'S versus Billy Quintino in a fight which is set fireworks, in my opinion. I think Billy Q has been a super fun fighter, win, lose or draw in the UFC. And Yair'S is someone who's definitely gone under the radar. It's really a really fun striker to kind of watch. I see this one being super fun. Billy Q is probably the easy pick, but I'm actually going to go with Yair'S. I think Yair'S is probably, maybe he can't pull it all together as well as someone like Billy Q, but for me, he's definitely got skills, in my opinion, which are better. I think he's going to struggle, though, with the pressure of Billy Q, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to pick bellow just to be different, but we'll have to wait and see. But for me, the most important fight on this card, well, not on the whole card, but definitely on the prelims, Ricky Symone taking on Jack Shaw. I guess we should start with Symone, who has had a really sort of crazy run in the UFC where he's fought some really good guys and beat them. He's fought an old Uriah Faber and lost. For me, Symone is, a savage. I think if you look at his fight against the Taz Mexican Devil, Ray Borg, that just shows the quality that he's got. Ray Borg's definitely a really underrated fighter. I know he's applying his trade now outside the UFC, but it's definitely someone you shouldn't turn your head at. For me, Jack Shaw, though, on the other hand, up the Wales. I think this is probably his biggest test to date in the UFC. But I think this is going to be one of his, tougher fights as well. I think Symone's wrestling ability definitely is going to make it hard for Jack Shaw to probably implement his grappling game. However, I don't think it really matters. I think on the feet, he's got one of the best jabs in MMA at this moment in time. He's very diverse in his striking. He's got a lot of different techniques he can use. But, for me, what makes him so special is his ability to use the basics to the highest sort of skill level. And for me, Jack Shaw is someone who I definitely think is a future champion. And I'm praying he's going to be a future champion, obviously from the UK. And I'm a big fan of his, to be honest. And I love his sort of origin story of how he's got the gym with his dad. And for me, I think he beats Ricky Symone pretty handedly in a fight, which is probably going to be, looked at as, Jack Shaw was too much for Ricky Symone, but coming in, it's definitely a tough fight on paper, but I just think he's going to beat him quite handedly. Jack Shaw, definitely someone who loves to go to a decision, so I'm going to pick a decision here for Jack Shaw, and I hope that one can come ahead. Let me know in the comments down below which is your favourite fight on the card, and let me know how you're swaying for Ortega versus Rodriguez. Obviously, I picked Rodriguez, second round finish, but let me know in the comments down below who you're going to pick. As always, guys, if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. And I'll see you next time. We'll probably be back now on Monday or Tuesday with a video recapping this card. And that should be super fun. So I'll see you then. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. And until next time. Peace out.